You may have clicked on this video wondering, why does this dork in the woods care so much about how much Donkey Kong Bananza sold? Is it the vested interest he has from the 5 stocks that he purchased 10 years ago while Miitomo was still a thing? Is he trying to defend the multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation from the evil forces of random people on Twitter and YouTube that don't like Nintendo? It's none of these. You're free to like or dislike Nintendo, Donkey Kong, and me as much as you want. I did gain $100 in the stock market though. Only took about 10 years. There's a simple, honest formula at play. The more units Donkey Kong sells, the more Donkey Kong stuff Nintendo makes. The more Donkey Kong stuff gets made, the less I feel the creeping sense of nihilistic emptiness as I sit in this pile of leaves. I'm just kidding, I just like Donkey Kong games. There are a lot of good reasons why we didn't get a new Donkey Kong game for so long after Tropical Freeze, but the better the franchise does commercially, the more games they will want to make to capitalize on that success. Though the gaps in between really big Mario and Zelda games can be large, they put in tons of spin-offs, remasters, and cameos into the pipeline to make sure that the characters maintain a presence. I would love to see Donkey Kong in an RPG game, or make a Cadence of Hyrule sort of cameo in an indie game. While we get DK in the Mario spin-offs, they always leave a lot on the table, as if they're trying to leave room for DK to get his own sports or party games in the future. So that's the reason. More sales equals more incentive to make more Donkey Kong. So how did Bananza do? Now let's contextualize this number because sales numbers can lead to deceiving conclusions without context. Before I get called out for cope, check out this tweet that haunts my dreams. The argument is that Banjo-Kazooie's popularity and lasting appeal is a psyop. It's a genjutsu thing from Naruto. It's all an illusion because Croc sold as many copies and no one talks about Croc anymore. I swear this tweet makes the rounds every year like it's orbiting the Earth. On its face, it makes sense until you dig a little deeper. That's right, gamers. We're talking about context. Now you're gonna have to stick with me for a minute here. Internet discourse has become very hot and cold in any degree of nuance as cope or fence sitting, but we need to elevate our conversation here. In the Croc example, you have to wonder if the quality of the game would leave any impact on how it's remembered. You would also have to consider the console, as the game is tied to the console it plays on. Croc was on PlayStation, a console that sold around 100 million units with over 3,000 games available for them. Nintendo 64 sold a third as many units with 1/10 as many games. Banjo was the 10th best-selling game on the 64. It beat out other big games like Majora's Mask, Pokemon Snap, and Mario Party. I don't think anyone would honestly make the argument that those other games are niche or propped up by YouTubers. Here's another fun comparison. Did you know that Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone on PlayStation outsold Zelda Ocarina of Time? Which one of those games do we still talk about? Mario Kart 8 is the ultimate example. Put it on the Wii U? Man, they didn't even sell half as many copies as Horizon Zero Dawn. Put it on the Switch?
Oh my god!
The truth about Mario Kart 8 is that both numbers were incredible. In fact, it's arguably more impressive on the Wii U because of that attach rate. While game sales are a very good metric for understanding a game's impact, without any surrounding context, it's just a number to swing at someone's head in silly internet arguments. What system was the game on? Was it a launch title? Did it come in bundles? Was it discounted? Did it release at the literal perfect time like Animal Crossing? Or was it Advance Wars? Was the game good? Did it age well? All of these things have an impact on any game's success. Sorry for the long tangent there, but I feel like it's a necessary primer for understanding the success or lack thereof when we look at Bananza's results. It had some incredible advantages like being one of the few significant system exclusives for the first year of the console's life, but not as much of an advantage as Mario Kart and Pokemon for being bundled with the system with a steep discount. Mario Kart World tripled DK's numbers, but 84% of that 9 million was acquired alongside the system. That's definitely going to bolster Mario Kart's numbers. Although let's be honest, this was always going to sell well. How would the numbers look if the roles were reversed? Who knows? But you can't just compare the numbers raw because of these factors. That's a whole other can of worms with game sales data. When a game is bundled with a console, did they buy the bundle for the game or the console? It kind of inflates the success of the game, but also that said game is helping close the sale, so it's hard to say how much of a boost it's getting from being bundled. It's just obvious that there is some sort of boost that they get. It's also exclusive to the Switch 2, meaning there are 150 million less opportunities for someone to purchase it over the Mario Galaxy bundle or Pokemon Legends. You have to consider Bananza competes with the entire backwards compatible Switch library. Go back to 2017 and Breath of the Wild was quite literally your only option for a long time on the original Switch. That's why it's bittersweet that we got Bananza as a near launch title. I think it's a great showcase of the system's power, and I think it would be a rather poor experience on the original Switch, but man, this will impact impact people's ability to play it. Throw that in with this being a very inopportune time to be launching a premium priced product. There's a ton of bad publicity with the Switch 2, compounded with economic issues like unexpected tariffs and rampant inflation. I play video games for a living, and I'm starting to get incredibly selective on which titles I spend my precious Cotrello bucks on. I love Bananza, and I love that I got to experience it on a brand new system, but I do wish there was an original DK game for the Switch that would have bolstered the franchise's reputation in the eyes of the bean counters at Nintendo. Let's look at Bananza compared to the other major releases of the series. The thing we have to remember here, however, is that this game will have a long tail on it. Mario Odyssey is still charting in the top 30 Switch games despite it being incredibly old at this point. While the numbers for pretty much every other Donkey Kong game are locked in at this point, Bananza will continue to sell throughout the generation. Here's a graph of all the sales data of the franchise, at least for the tentpole releases. I'm not including the arcade ones because it's a totally different business model. So far, Bananza is landing somewhere in the middle, and that's fantastic. Why is it fantastic? Well, let's look at this contextually. Let's take a little journey in Mario's time machine with Abraham Lincoln and see where the launch window Switch games were in their first few financial reports. Here's the 2017 report straight from Nintendo demonstrating the software sales of their games. With 4 months on the market, Breath of the Wild sold 3.92 million units, while Mario Kart 8 sold 3.54 million in a little over 2 months. Donkey Kong was able to achieve 3.49 million in 2.5 months, so it's keeping pace with two of the Switch's most popular games. Now you might say, of course, Bananza sold well. There's barely any Switch 2 games. To which I would ask, do you remember the launch of the Nintendo Switch? The only first party reported here that I didn't mention was ARMS coming in at 1.18 million. Another interesting comparison we can make is Splatoon 2. That game released in the middle of July in 2017, so it's a pretty similar situation to Bananza. The earnings report after showed a strong 3.61 million units in the same time span. I will caveat this with the fact that the Switch 2 has outperformed the Switch 1. While it's not a one-to-one comparison, it paints a picture that Donkey Kong is generally doing quite well. It doesn't have the attach rate of Mario Kart 8 or Breath on the Switch, but there are all these Switch 2 editions, upgrades, and backwards compatibility on the system to compete for people's time and money. Nintendo actually noted in their report that they're seeing a lot of Switch 1 games being bought and played on the Switch 2. We also need to remind ourselves that the OG Switch only had the aforementioned fledgling library, no NSO and no backwards compatibility. Based on all this information and the context surrounding it, I think I can say that Bananza will land somewhere in the top 25 games on the Switch 2 at the end of the generation. Looking at the current pace, I'd wager it lands in that Luigi's Mansion or Splatoon part of the pack, but I'm hoping it continues to scoop sales the way Breath did. After all, Bananza has already outdone the lifetime sales of a chunk of big Switch games, including the likes of Pikmin 4, Paper Mario Origami King, Yoshi's Crafted World, Metroid Dread, ARMS, and Xenoblade with 2.5 months on the market. And those are some strong brands. I imagine this time next year we'll see Bananza cruise past Fire Emblem and Kirby's highest records. The question that remains is how much momentum will this game carry? While I'm sure Mario Galaxy will pick up around the movie's release, it hasn't sucked all the air out of the room. Bananza will remain the premier choice for a Switch 2 platforming adventure for a while. There are some big games coming to the Switch and Switch 2, but I think Bananza will remain in the eShop's top 10 for the foreseeable future. Right before the launch of the game, I speculated that it would probably surpass 10 million units, and I think given the pace of this game compared with some of the Switch greats like Breath and Splatoon 2, this is within reach. The last time the franchise had this level of success was the Super Nintendo. Although DK held strong on a bunch of other systems, this would be his true return to Nintendo's upper echelon of IP. Maybe they'll even put him on the bag at the Nintendo store. I would fully expect another Donkey Kong project to be debuting within 3 years. I imagine some sort of remaster or new 2D game is in the cards, or perhaps we'll see some interesting spin-offs. Maybe that would be a fun video to make, speculating on what's next for the series. And that's exactly what we'll do down the road. It's been a wild year for Donkey Kong fans. We have gone from perpetual disappointment with every passing direct to the top of the totem pole. With 2 game releases, a theme park, tons of new merch, a movie confirmation, big cameos, and DLC, I finally understand how it feels to be a Mario fan. Like, seriously. How do you guys even keep up with all this? Well, I'm sure the wait for the next 3D Donkey Kong game will be the better part of a decade. There are so many other cool things this cast of characters can participate in. Even just looking at the next few months, we have Mario Tennis coming up with Donkey Kong reprising the role of surrogate dad. I don't think Nintendo is in any hurry to add more to Mario Kart World, but I think the chances of us seeing some Donkey Kong tent before April of next year are pretty high. I imagine they'll want to give Bananza one more push before they shift into the Mario Galaxy movie and the next 3D Mario game. Oh, and I almost forgot. The same day we got news of Bananza's success, we also got a look at the new chunky and lanky designs. We are feasting and it's not even Thanksgiving yet. I'm gonna have to go back and make another video. While you're waiting on that, check out this one I made on the Donkey Kong Renaissance for some more color in this picture of how Donkey Kong continues to march forward in his major comeback.